Hey, hey, hey. Happy Tuesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, gaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everyone, here in the United States. It is election night, 2024. Elsewhere, it's simply November 5th. This is live stream number 1118. So if you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news. And then I will normally pontificate about a topic related to our hobby, which I am going to be doing tonight. In fact, today is the culmination of over 2 years of people telling us how different we are here in the United States and why we should be at odds. Maybe not necessarily at each other's throats, but at odds, especially from a certain aspect of the electorate out there. I'm going to talk about what actually brings us together as gamers. Why do we game? And I know solo games, solitaire games have become more popular over the past few years, especially when we were in the midst of the COVID pandemic. But for the most part, we game together. And there's a lot that brings us together. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. It's going to actually be kind of a quick show, simply because I know a lot of folks who tend to watch here in the US probably want to get back to that election news. So I would take a guess that things might be a little quiet as far as our chat tonight. We'll find out. We'll see what's happened. But once again, super casual, just hanging out, having some fun. Now, of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you're not going to find here on YouTube. Come on, you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. I have actually been kind of tweaking things. I'm looking at maybe doing maybe not necessarily a completely new design for thegaminggang.com, but changing it a little bit because it's looked the same for quite some time now. It's got to be at least 5 years that thegaminggang.com has looked the same. If you want to see something pretty interesting, go to the Wayback Machine, which is part of archive.org, and take a look at thegaminggang.com. Now, there are certain aspects of it that won't actually load because the images are gone, I think. I think that's why. But you can see kind of the evolution of the website. In fact, the first website I put together was HTML. I actually had to code that sucker. And I knew jack shit about coding. So I was like, okay, all righty. So anyway, if you happen to pop by thegaminggang.com and happen to find that something's not working right or the site doesn't come up at all or seems to be broken, it's because I've been working on it. I've been playing around with it a little bit. I also have something that I do want to mention. I am not going to be doing any other shows this week. This is going to be the only one. If you've been following the show, I've mentioned that there have been some things going on around the house. Essentially, it's repairs that have to be made. And before the weather turns, got to be taken care of. It's the roof. And there's some stuff that I can take care of up there. That's what I will be doing the next few nights. Well, not nights, few days, but that means I won't have any prep time to do a show. So I will also point this out a little later on as well. And lastly, I promise we're going to get into things. Last thing I want to mention, if you're here in the U.S. and you're registered to vote and you're watching this and the polls are still open where you live and you have not voted, please drop everything, get to your polling place, vote. I'm not telling you who to vote for, but I am telling you to vote. So I will mention that a little bit later on in the show as well, because there are still places here in the U.S., especially out on the West Coast. Polls are still open, and they're open for quite a bit more time. So just saying. Anyway, because this is a live stream, there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And of course, you do have to be a subscriber to the channel for at least 10 minutes before you can take part in chat. If you check both those boxes, then by all means, you want to say howdy, maybe get a question, comment, by all means, chime in. I'll do my best to respond. First out of the gate tonight is our good friend of the show, the Madman. Sean O'Donnell's with us, W4 Testy, Trekkie, Mike, Keithulu, Kabuki Kid is with us, double K's in the house. Let's see, who else do we have? Steven from Roll for Combat is popping on in, as has Kathy Evans. Chris Lundgren's with us. I understand Chris is under the weather. Here's hoping that you feel better soon, get well soon. And Pete Strakolich, I see, is with us. I think I have said hello to everyone. I hope you brought enough gum for everyone. No, he doesn't say gum. He just says, I hope you've brought enough for everyone. I didn't know there'd be so many. And a lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is chiming in. Said she took 2 trips to the polling place and a call to the Board of Elections, but they voted this morning. Pro tip, if your last name has a space in it, the system at the polls won't accept it. I know, my last name, it's supposed to have a space. It's supposed to be, well, it is MC, capital A-L-E-E-R. And yes, sometimes it's kind of weird. It's like, no, we don't have that on file. Put a space between the C and the A. Oh, yeah, there we go. Now we've got it. Yes. Yes. All right, everybody. Welcome. I'm actually surprised that we've got as many people in chat right now. And not everyone is from outside the U.S. Semper Buffo is also swinging on in to say hello. Tessie Trekkie says, Australia has compulsory voting, something for which they're very happy. I did not know that. It is disappointing to see so many Americans of voting age and eligibility just say, hey, it's not important enough for me to waste my time once for a few hours, maybe at the worst, a single time a year. Dinner. All right, let's move on into the news tonight because strangely enough, I don't know how this flew under my radar, but only 2 days remain to back the Rock of Chickamauga on Kickstarter. Here's the latest from Flying Pig Games. What is the Rock of Chickamauga? Well, funny enough, they're not going to actually tell you. I will tell you who the Rock of Chickamauga is. The Rock of Chickamauga, designed by the award-winning and good personal friend of mine, Herman Ludman, is the next thrilling installment in the Black Swan series, following the highly acclaimed A Most Fearful Sacrifice. This scenario-driven 2-player wargame plunges players into the epic Battle of Chickamauga, fought in September 1868. No, 1868. It's 1863. I don't know where that 8 came from. In northern Georgia, command the Union Army at the Cumberland, led by William Rosecrans, as it maneuvers south from Chattanooga to confront Braxton Bragg's Confederate Army of Tennessee. The conflict unfolds dramatically along Chickamauga Creek, known ominously as the River of Death, where generals grapple with the chaos of battle, featuring 15 square feet of meticulously detailed maps and Flying Pig Games' own renowned production quality. Ooh, let's not pat ourselves on the back too much there. The Rock of Chickamauga offers high solitaire playability, promises an exhilarating and immersive wargaming experience unlike any other. The battle along that river of death was a confused affair, with generals exercising little control over their formation's movements. A true soldier's battle and an engagement that the Black Swan system was designed to simulate. Based on the system used in A Most Fearful Sacrifice and similar to The Devils to Pay and Hill of Death, the Rock of Chickamauga will have the usual high-quality production value that Flying Pig Games is known for. The second time they've mentioned that. And will only be a deeply challenging war game. I should say not only be, but an innovative and immersive simulation as well. There is a Kickstarter video. It's about 2.5 minutes long, but you're going to get a better feel for the Rock of Chickamauga.
It came, it was played, and it conquered the hearts of players. Both old-timers and newcomers to the hobby were enamored by A Most Fearful Sacrifice, the 3 days of Gettysburg. Flying Pig Games now proudly presents the second game in the award-winning Black Swan series, The Rock of Chickamauga. The game covers the entire Battle of Chickamauga, fought from September 18th through the 20th, 1863, in northern Georgia, in no less than 14 scenarios. South of the vital railroad hub of Chattanooga, Tennessee, the two opposing forces shadowboxed to gain the upper hand. The ensuing battle was a confused affair, with generals exercising little control over their formation's movements. The Rock of Chickamauga, a true soldier's battle, and an engagement that the Black Swan system was designed to simulate. At the start of each turn, players must make command decisions to prioritize in which order their formation should activate, knowing that the least favored have only a slim chance to activate and affect play. Aside from the formation activation cards, each side secretly picks some vital event cards that are tailor-made for their army and reflect actual events that occurred at the battle. These cards, if played at the right time, might very well turn the tide of the game. In addition, 2 unpredictable Fog of War cards are added to the deck to add the essential elements of the chaos of war. At its heart, The Rock of Chickamauga is a game about expecting the unexpected and doing the best with the tactical options you have available, while not forgetting your long-term goals either. After 2 days of ferocious Confederate assaults, the Union Army finally retreated in disorder. It was only the gallant last-stand defense of General George H. Thomas, the Rock of Chickamauga, and his brave men that prevented the total destruction of the Union Army. The Rock of Chickamauga, a game made by gamers for gamers to enjoy, by Flying Pig Games.
The Kickstarter for The Rock of Chickamauga is over 500% funded. You can reserve a copy of the game for a $115 pledge through November 7th. Once again, as I pointed out, I don't know how this flew under my radar. I was even checking my emails, and I did not see an email from Mark H. Walker over at Flying Pig Games. So I was like, because you know me, I always share news about Tiny Battle Publishing and Flying Pig Games releases. And on top of that, if it's a new design by my buddy Herman Luttman, it's a given you're going to see news about it. Now, expected delivery on this is April 2025. Chris Lundgren asked, what did I think would be the complexity level of this? I did review The Devil's to Pay, and I would say it's probably about a 5 or 6. So if you went like 1 to 10, I know GMT likes to do a 0 to 9, but on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say about 5, 6 ish. It's not super complex, but you do want to keep in mind that there are some random factors that come into play because Herman loves chaos. In fact, as far as Herman goes with game designs, many of the times it's chaos is king because that also leads to greater replayability. So I also mentioned that I would tell you who is the Rock of Chickamauga, and I have toured the Chickamauga battlefield years and years ago. In fact, I was 15 at the time that I toured the Civil War battlefields and visited, I want to say it was like 13 of them on a summer vacation. George Thomas, Union General George Thomas, is the Rock of Chickamauga. So what happened is Rosecrans had issued orders for, I want to say it was a division. I might be wrong. It might have been a brigade to move from one area on the line to reinforce another area that actually really didn't need reinforcement. But when he had them move out, it was like, oh, look, there's a huge gap in the Union lines. So the Union Army was collapsing because, they had been shattered. Now the line had been shattered. So George Thomas and his troops made a stand. Well, the Union Army retreated. And no matter what the Confederates could do, they could not get past Thomas. And that's how he earned the nickname, the Rock of Chickamauga. Should have the little star go overhead, say, the more you know. Kabuki Kid says she'll try anything Herman makes. Yeah. I've reviewed a lot of stuff over the years from Herman, and there were a couple of games here and there that I was sort of like, but it was normally stuff that was like kind of off the wall. He did a baseball game for Victory Point Games, which was interesting. Of course, it was fictional teams because Victory Point Games was going to pay for licensing from MLB, and you didn't get a full league of teams. I think if I remember right, there were like 4 or 6 teams, and you didn't get a full roster. But the game itself was kind of interesting. It was pretty wild. Bradley Thorpe asks, do I think there could be a Civil War tabletop role-playing game? You know what? I don't know. I could see some pretty good one-shots, but I would think looking at, say, the American Civil War as a role-playing game setting, I would think that it would probably work better if the player characters were guerrilla fighters. I think that would probably work pretty well. And then, of course, have them on the fringes of historic battles. I think that would probably be pretty cool. But I can't see just an American Civil War role-playing game just where the players play as soldiers. Just like I know, too bad my buddy Scott Weagle's not hanging out in chat tonight that I went to high school with, because he used to run behind enemy lines when we were in high school, and they had a couple of printed adventures. But the thing is, it was a World War II role-playing game, but it was all behind enemy lines, kind of, The Guns of Navarone was one of the adventures that they had published. So you were just, a team going to knock out the Guns of Navarone. So, I don't think, unless there's some sort of a supernatural element or some sort of horror element, maybe even science fiction-ish, I don't think just a straight out war game goes over all that well. Now, we've talked about Twilight 2000, which I've reviewed everything that's come out from Free League Publishing. That's been out for a long time. Even that isn't a traditional like war that's taking place. The war is essentially over. Everyone has lost in Twilight 2000. So I don't know. I don't think so. Chris Lundgren had asked why I don't think why I would think historical board games don't do as well as they should, why they're not as popular as they should be. You know what? I'll tackle that after we finish up the news before we move on to our brief intermission. But moving on, speaking of moving on, Call of Cthulhu No Time to Scream is out in print and PDF from Chaosium Inc. And of course, I've got the skinny. So what are you going to find inside? No Time to Scream contains 3 short play scenarios for Call of Cthulhu. Each scenario is perfect for a single evening of mystery and horror and are designed to be played in around 2 hours. Each scenario includes 4 pre-generated investigators along with full-color maps and handouts. The clock is ticking. The 3 scenarios share a common theme. The investigators are up against the clock. Guidance for the keeper is provided to keep the action flowing, and the emphasis is on the uncaringness of the mythos. There's also help for adding more investigators for larger group play. A lonely thread. Something wrong with Professor Thomas. Unfortunately, you didn't know that when you arrived at his charming woodland cabin. Can you act in time to save your friend? Or will a horrific secret devour all? There's bits and pieces. A doctor's body lies next to an autopsy table, and the corpse he was examining has vanished. The only clue is a set of bloody footprints. A devilish game of hide and seek ensues with gory consequences. And lastly, there's Aurora Blue. A band of U.S. Treasury agents raid an illegal whiskey distillery hidden in Alaska's Chagach Mountains. I'm sure I mispronounced that. The sun is setting, and that's when the really bad things come out to play. No Time to Scream is designed for use with either the Call of Cthulhu starter set or the Call of Cthulhu Keeper rulebook. The 104-page hardcover carries an MSRP of $29.99. You can grab the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $14.99. And of course, I have reviewed No Time to Scream. So if you have not caught that video, by all means, if you have any interest in this, check that out. I go into a little bit of detail about each of the 3 adventures and what I think of them. And I tell you what I think of the collection as a whole. So there you have it. But it is now out in print. We got a few folks popping on in, taking breaks from the election news. 245 Trioxin is popping on in for a reprieve from the election coverage. And also Jose Fernandez is stopping on in. People are saying, yes, it's a stressful night. Kabuki Kid just said, yeah, it's a stressful night. One thing I should point out is if you are down right now, if you feel down right now, historically, as this night goes on, things get better. And if you are riding super high right now, you might want to temper that. So just at least from what I saw before I started the stream, for all I know, maybe Fox News has already called the election. I have no clue. I'm doing this right now. Uh, Bradley Thorpe asks if I'd ever be interested in reviewing Mythic Britain. It's an RPG by Mithras. Really amazing book. I'm one of these sorts of people. I'll review just about anything as long as it's not created by someone who's just a complete piece of shit. I'm fine. I'm fine with that. Daryl Eric's with us, says they started drinking already. Well, I'm only drinking my good old diet right here. As Kabuki Kid points out, polls are only starting to close. Speaking of, once again, I'm going to remind you, if you've tuned in and you live somewhere in the United States where the polls are still open and you haven't voted and you are registered to vote, go vote. If you are in line, as far as I understand, just about every state, if you are in line at the polling place when the polls close, you will still get an opportunity to vote. In my opinion, it's your civic duty. I mean, it really, really is. The show's not going anywhere, right? You always catch it later on Memorex, right? Vorpal Bite has joined us in chat. Moving right along. A new bundle of holding has launched for Broncolonia. Yes, it's from Acheron Games, and I've got the deets on the deal. Adventure. This all-new Broncolonia bundle presents English language PDFs of the Broncolonia tabletop role-playing campaign setting from Acheron Games for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and compatible systems. Set in a topsy-turvy version of medieval Italy, this unheroic, picaresque, and roguish world draws on Italian culture and pop culture from Umberto Eco to Corto Maltese, Renaissance epics, and Italo Calvino, The Princess Bride, Pinocchio, and 100 more. Broncolonia is a brawly, low fantasy land of legendary knights and skilled treasure hunters, but you're not them. You're knaves, low-life swindlers, slobs, and scoundrels who get pulled out of prison to fix things after those heroes mess up. You might take jobs from talking mice, omnipotent fairies, devils from Inferno, and foul-mouthed marionettes. If you climb the ranks of your free company, you can hope to pull off a heist that will set you up for life. What could possibly go wrong? This all-new Broncolonia bundle gives you everything you need, well, aside from the 5e rule books, to run lighthearted, low-magic adventures for easygoing knaves who may not prevent calamity, but will definitely drink good wine beforehand. For just $12.95, you'll get all 4 English language titles in the Broncolonia collection, which has a retail value of $53, as DRM PDFs, including the complete 196-page Broncolonia setting book, plus the free Quick Start rules, the Macaronicon rules expansion, the war-themed full-length campaign, The Empire Whacks Back, and a miscellany of characters, equipment, monsters, and adventures in Jinx's Almanac. Also included is the Pay What You Want digital lasagna. I guess it was originally Pay What You Want, with tons of digital artwork, characters, maps, and tokens. These savings will run through November 29th. Sweet! You might recall I have reviewed Broncolonia. Very nicely done. It's a lot of fun. It is actually worth having the 5e books for. So there is that. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. I enjoyed it quite a lot. You may as well. Strangely enough, just a couple of days ago, somebody had commented on, I want to say, I think it was my review video of the setting book. And they said, oh, wow, this looks really great. Sadly, I can't afford these books. And then the next day, this bundle of holding pops up. So I did comment back and say, hey, by the way, you may not know this. this is now in bundle of holding. So this is a pretty rocking deal, $12.95, which is, I believe, less than each of the PDFs. I don't know. It said $53 MSRP. Doesn't sound right, but hey, that's okay. That's all right. Edge for Life is with us in chat. Good to see you. Mike said, hardest part about voting in person was trying to keep their dice rolls quiet in the booth. Chris Lundgren says they only plan to buy the new Dungeon Master's guide for the Greyhawk setting. Looks awesome. I think there's 30 pages devoted to it, if I have heard correctly. I have not seen it, so I guess Wizards of the Coast doesn't want me taking a peek at it because I'm pretty sure reviewers got their copies already. Don't know. Maybe the Pinkertons are shutting down those video like first looks and reviews, though. All right. On to our next news piece. Pulp Hummock Press has released the second volume of the massive Gods of the Forbidden North OSR campaign. Here's what I know. Gods of the Forbidden North is a massive, I just said that, 3-volume mega adventure series written for the old school essentials advanced fantasy tabletop role-playing game by Necrotic Gnome. It details a campaign setting, a wilderness hex crawl, a sprawling underworld connecting to multiple entrances on the surface, and more importantly, an enormous mega dungeon. Volume 1, which I have reviewed, is the first book, and it covers the Arctic frontiers, settlements, cultures, religions, and its vast wilderness regions. It includes 1 urban starter quest and 5 low-level dungeons. Now, of course, we've got Volume 2, the second book, which details the underworld below the continent's surface, Plutonian settlements, 4 mid-level dungeons, 1 urban investigation adventure, and 1 high-level dungeon. And then there's Volume 3, which is on the horizon. This 532-page second volume, yes, you heard that correctly, 532 pages, is designed for a heroic party of 6 to 8 adventurers to begin at 5th level and reach a minimum of 9th level by the book's conclusion. Although most parties will actually hit 10th to 12th level if all the underworld encounters are exhausted. Though the mega adventure was originally designed as a sandbox campaign, it also supports episodic adventure path playstyles as well. This hardcover with PDF can be had over at Drive-Thru RPG for $75, the softcover with PDF for $65, or if you want to just grab the PDF alone, you can do so for $35. You might recall my review of the first volume. I like this quite a bit. It's packed with content. It absolutely is. And that first volume, if you're ever looking for sort of like northern sort of adventures where you're talking about, not necessarily the Arctic, but more, ice and snow kind of adventures. Lots of fantastic content in there. And of course, you've got some of the small dungeons and stuff like that. I was really impressed, especially considering that this really is kind of a one-person project. One person has written the vast majority of this content. So pretty wild. And as you can see, pretty professionally put together with this second volume. So this did successfully kickstart. So you might recall me sharing some news about that also. Chris Lundgren says, Greyhawk Grognard. So I have to ask, because I've always been told that the correct pronunciation is Grognard. But then when I say Grognard, people are like, you mean Grognard, don't you? It's like, yeah, okay. Anyway, that person got his, did a fantastic review. He also has 2 really cool 5.5 players guides in PDF. 5.5 player's guides in PDF. It's not a player's handbook. Because okay. Legally, it's not out there. Yes, Football Bite says grognard is a French word. Yes, because it described like members of Napoleon's old guard. They're supposed to be, veterans, but also jaded. So, Chris Lundgren says potato. All right. Moving right along, my final news piece, now available in PDF from John Harper and 1-7 Design Studio, is, from my understanding, the first companion or expansion to Blades in the Dark, Deeper Cuts. Here's the lowdown. Blades in the Dark Deep Cuts is a 118-page expansion for, you guessed it, the Blades in the Dark role-playing game, covering a treasure trove of lore, setting material, and alternative mechanics that John Harper has developed over the years for use in Blades campaigns. First part expands on the setting of the game, including 27 new factions, providing new lore and crew opportunities, over 100 heritage and background packages to flesh out the characters and the setting even more, 13 new innovations in technology to reflect ongoing industrial age advances, including new rare and restricted technology for nefarious scoundrels. Scoundrel. I like the sound of that. To get their hands on. Also included is a new concept being called a catalyst, which is a world-shaking event that expands and alters the setting of the game, providing new avenues for intrigue and adventure, as well as opportunities and scores for every crew type. The second part contains 6 modular rule systems, including more flexible and impactful harm and trauma rules, a modified advancement system to customize the rate at which characters progress, diceless downtime with modified vice, healing, crew development, and other systems, as well as a system for debt. A modified load system that's more tied to the fiction while remaining simple and easy to use, as well as a new action system which overhauls and streamlines the action resolution mechanics to empower players even more and speed up the process of play. Whole book is packed with tons of lore, gameable details, plug-and-play systems, GM tools, crew opportunities, and new artwork to take your Blades in the Dark games to the next level. Once again, this clocks in at 118 pages. Now, it is only available right now in PDF, but you can get that over at DriveThruRPG for $10. Very cool. I have never actually taken a look at Blades in the Dark. Just have never had an opportunity to take a peek at it. Always hear good things about it. There's got to be 20 role-playing games out there which are built on Blades in the Dark, which, if I remember correctly, is kind of built a little bit on the Apocalypse engine. Once again, as I said, I haven't seen it. This is just kind of what I recall hearing about it. But yeah, a lot of folks really, really dig it. So a lot of folks should be really, really excited that there's an expansion out for it. Very nice. Very nice. All righty. So that is the news for tonight. Yay. Of course, I was just talking about DriveThruRPG. Don't forget the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to go visit, say, I don't know, DriveThruRPG, Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, any of those One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do go a long way to keeping thegaminggang.com, which is being renovated at the moment. Although right now it looks exactly as it has in the past, because I didn't want to go do this show and have people popping onto the website going, this is broken. Don't want Google popping on there either going, hey, this is broken. Let's get rid of all these links. It wouldn't be that fast. But once again, your support by clicking on those banner ads really does keep thegaminggang.com around. Of course, if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find gaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always swing on by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Oh, so refreshing. And there are folks out there, such as the Madman, Gustavo Calvalho, Cassiopeia Nebula, Roger Perdome, Demetrios Okanamo. I'm never going to get that name anywhere close to being correct. Jeremy Keir, Marcus George, and John Webster, as well as Craig Watkins, who stopped on by paypal.me and made not small donations very recently. So thank you very much. Thank you kindly. So we are going to move on to tonight's topic. It's going to be a short one. We're not going to hang out too long tonight. But before I do so, Chris Lundgren had asked when I was doing the news piece for the Rock of Chickamauga, why aren't historical board games more popular? And the reality is, for one, war games have never been extremely popular. So if we're going to talk war games, we have to separate that from historical games because, say, games like Academy Games Freedom, that's not a war game, but it is a historical game. So we kind of separate those. So if you're kind of curious about war games have never been popular. They've never been big. Even when those were kind of the only board games that were out there for adults, right? Back in the early years of Avalon Hill, you didn't have a lot out there for adult gamers. Sure, you had some of the baseball games like Status Pro Baseball and APBA Baseball and the other sports that they eventually got into. But say talking like late 50s, 1960s, even then war games weren't all that big a deal. Although, funny enough, I do know that Avalon Hill actually advertised Gettysburg on a billboard, and I think it was in Pennsylvania that they did that, which I always thought was pretty wild. I was like, wow, a billboard for an Avalon Hill game back in the day. So overall, I don't think historical games are hugely popular because a vast majority of people nowadays don't give a shit about history. That's the reality of it. I hear from a lot of folks, and they're not just in their teens and 20s and early 30s, who will say, if it happened before I was born, I don't care. It's sort of, my response to that is always, you should care, because the reason why the world is as it is, good and ill, is because of things that happened before you were born. So, plus, I think it's kind of an asshole-ish thing to say. Yeah, I wasn't born, so who cares? Like, oh, thank God you're here now. It's like, yeah, I'm sure those resources are going to good use. But yeah, I think that's part of it. But you know what? There are historical games that do well, that are more concerned with, in my opinion, with the game aspect than, say, with the historical reality, right? Which is fine. I don't have any issue with that. I mean, when I was in high school and just prior to high school, I've mentioned before that I was a voracious reader of no doubt. And I would crank through books left and right. And there were games that I would play that sparked my interest in finding out more about, say, I don't know, the American Civil War. One of the reasons why I know how to pronounce Chickamauga. It just rolls off my tongue. Also known as the Gettysburg of the West. May not have known that. Here we go, that little star again, the more you know. So yeah, I think part of it is that just overall people don't care about history. That's why we see things, strangely enough, it kind of brings us back to this being election day. We see things that have taken place during this campaign and verbiage that's been used that smacks very close to things that have been said in the past, and it sets off red flags for some people. Other people who don't have any sort of reference are like, whatever. Okay. So I think that's it. I think it's mainly the reason why we don't see historical games be really super popular. We don't see historical games that come out and it's like, oh my God, it's like Gloomhaven, right? Oh, everybody you can't get it and keep it in stock. It's sold out all the time. Although, funny enough, I'm not a fan of Gloomhaven. I bought it. I've got it. It's sitting on the old shelf. If I had a big enough box, I would actually put it up in the next game sale. But, yeah, we just don't have that. Anyway, so Sharon O'Donnell says Total War is one of their favorite game series and digitally carries the torch for pseudo historical war games. You know what game I love? And I'm sure some of you out there are going to I actually know the game. I was going to say remember it. It's still being supported. So, Battle Brothers. I like that game a lot. And it's, it's just not. It's not as if like the graphics are going to blow anybody away and stuff like that. But man, it's just a blast. And it's really addicting. It's really addicting. That's why I kind of try to stay away from it, because I know every time they do a little expansion, I jump back in and start playing, and then it's like everything else suffers, right? It's like, oh yeah, not getting as many reviews out there and stuff because I've been playing Battle Brothers. If you have not checked it out, definitely recommend it. It's not historical per se, because there are fantasy monsters and stuff like that. But yes, Sean O'Donnell says all Black Company vibes. Yes, it does. It really does. And you have to make do with the people you've got and the people you recruit. And, you're never going to have like just a massive group of just absolute killers. You're going to have people who are like, all right, there's the cannon fodder. Roll him up there. So anyway, all right. We're going to talk a little bit about what brings us together as gamers, what draws us together in this hobby, just so we can get away from everything that divides us that we've had to listen to for the past few years and longer, really, past 15 years, really. We're gonna talk about why there's so much that, especially as gamers, as tabletop gamers, that really brings us together and kind of just boots the things that make us different kind of out the door. They aren't that important. But before I do so, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
Refreshment. For your enjoyment, there's hot, fresh popcorn, tempting, delicious hot dogs, and so many kinds of ice cream. And, of course, sparkling, delicious ice-cold Coca-Cola for everybody at the refreshment counter now. Remember, your favorite snack will taste especially good with world-famous ice-cold Coca-Cola.
Somebody saw the shot, and she's got a cold drink for you. Canada Dry Ginger Ale. One gulp is for thirst, the other gulps are for kicks. Come in on a wave and end up at a party. It's going to be a good evening. Canada Dry Ginger Ale. One gulp is for thirst, the other gulps are for kicks.
So the next morning, Tony ran...
You read all of Tony Gets a Pony and you're ready for a drink. Canada Dry Ginger Ale. So good it hurts. Fresh, wet, and moonlit. A girl and a Canada Dry. And across a crowded boat you hear ice cracking and wisecracking, and you know it's going to last till dawn. Canada Dry Ginger Ale. One gulp is for thirst, the other gulps are for kicks.
Coffee break. Want a cup of Wilkins? Oh, thank you. Now all our workers drink Wilkins.
Crackos, Crackos, wake up for Crackos.
Who are you?
I'm Cracko, with my new Waker-Upper cereal, Post-Corn Crackos. Have you heard what happens when you crack into Crackos?
Mm-mm.
Don't talk when you're cracking.
Who's making that racket?
Up and
It crackles when you crunch.
Corn Crackos, new from Post. Crackling little twists of golden corn cereal, sugary sweet and crisp enough to drive you wild. Crackos, Crackos, wake up for Crackos. Have you heard what happens when you crack into Crackos?
Are you kidding?
I'm Cracko. Say how'd you do.
What's all that noise? You, Marshall!
We're doing gangs in town.
Hustlers, I'll tell you.
I heard it. It crackles when you crunch.
You hear it too, mate. Get new Post-Corn Crackos.
Whee! I know you're sitting there wondering, hey, wait a second, how come there was no movie trailer? What's going on? Guys get spoiled. I spoil you every once in a while. I just didn't have time to put a new intermission together today. So yeah, that was an old one. That's from a while back. A couple of things. This is the first stream on our new internet service provider. So Xfinity is gone. It is now MetroNet, and the upload speed is insane. So it is essentially the same as our download speed that we're getting. So I have actually bumped up the kilobits per second that are getting cranked out here. So fingers crossed that maybe this is a little bit sharper. Doesn't change the camera, but it does change the output. And as far as I know, I think I'm at the limit that YouTube allows for kilobits per second for a 1080p stream. So there is that. Also wanted to mention, got a bunch of goodies that I'm going to be taking a peek at. I have 2 new releases from Osprey Games. One of them is the new horror role-playing game from Scott Malthouse. I believe that's his last name. I can't remember the name of it. It's upstairs. So as I brought it up to take a peek at, I also got Freaks, which is, to my knowledge, a miniatures game. So I've got that. The fine folks over at the World Anvil enjoyed my coverage of Broken Tales, even though I haven't reviewed it yet. So they sent me Dead Air Seasons, which I think is a zombie game. Also have The Wandering Tavern from Homie and the Dude. This had a very successful Kickstarter. I believe there's some other stuff showing up as well that's going to be with this. So I have got that. And then Czech Games Edition sent me SETI, which I was very surprised to receive. I was like, oh, wow. And this looks kind of cool. This looks pretty. I know I shared news about it. I'm trying to remember if we're trying to establish contact. As a leader of a space exploration agency, you learn to navigate a dynamic rotating solar system in your search for extraterrestrial life. Oh, so we're launching probes and things like that. So very nice, very nice. We'll be taking a peek at this. Sarah D says they're getting rid of Xfinity, switching to Surf Broadband. I don't want to go off on another Xfinity rant, but I already told you how I called, I canceled. They called, talked to my dad. Once again, my dad doesn't hear too well, especially on the phone. So he was like, no, it's too late, whatever offer they were trying to make. And then I called to find out, well, what was the offer, right? I told you this story. And then they said, yeah, well, your cancellation has been canceled. It's like, what? So thankfully, the tech support person I spoke to, she was really nice. And then she said, okay, I'm going to make sure that this goes through, that it is canceled. Then all of a sudden last night, we get a new bill, new notification of a bill for our service for this month. And I'm like, oh no. So I had to call back in last night. I was like, so far this has been really good. The MetroNet, haven't had any issues. Speeds are great. Obviously, we're never going to get that gig on Wi-Fi up and down, but we're hitting 600-700. And the upload is like 500. So I've already uploaded a couple of videos to YouTube, and they're like 3 minutes and they're done. I'm like, sweet. So that'll be nice. So hopefully maybe this is a little bit clearer. Madman says they're getting rid of Xfinity in a couple of weeks. They already have the AT&T fiber, which has been great so far. Yeah, this MetroNet is fiber optic. So not having to share, basically a line or share bandwidth with other people. Only thing that's kind of weird is that we don't have like our own assigned IP address. So I might end up going static IP. All depends on how well this works. So far it looks like we're not having any problems whatsoever. All right. Enough of that talk. So let's chat a little bit tonight about what brings us together as gamers. And I can only tell you from my experience what got me into this hobby and what's truly kept me in this hobby. Because if you think about it, tabletop gaming, I say it all the time. I'm not just talking about role-playing games. I'm talking tabletop gaming on a whole is a very niche hobby. And I know folks out there think, but what about Wizards of the Coast? Still, there are loads more people out there who have other hobbies than tabletop gaming. As far as like video gamers, if you took all of the tabletop gamers and compared them to everyone who plays video games, we'd be like a tiny little percentage. That's how niche of a hobby that we have. So we have a lot of competition for our entertainment dollars. So there's got to be something about this hobby that keeps us in it. I mean, a lot of people out there, they play video games. And a lot of times some of them are like, hey, you know what? I don't want to have to deal with other people like face to face, which is a bad thing because then you have to deal with people who are online, which in my opinion is far worse. But, they're like, yeah, I don't have to deal with anybody. I don't care. So I have to play a game against some jackass halfway around the world. It's only one game and I'm done. Whatever. And of course, tons of people out there playing games that don't have any online element, or they have an online element that they don't take advantage of. So what keeps us in this? So when I first started playing what we would consider to be games in our hobby, I would have been about 11, 10 or 11. And interestingly enough, when I was a little kid, we didn't play board games. I know most people, when they're kids, they're like, oh, yeah, we played Monopoly and we played the Game of Life. And even smaller kids, they would play like Hi-Ho Cherry-O, Shoots and Ladders, stuff like that. Now, from time to time, we would have a board game. Like I remember we had Hi-Ho Cherry-O. We had, no, I take that back. A friend of ours had Break the Ice. But for the most part, we didn't play, board games with our parents. If we played board games, my brother and I played board games with each other. So I was hanging out in a hobby shop, which sadly is no longer. It was a world-renowned hobby shop in Chicago called Stanton Hobbies that people would discuss if they had, say, a layover at O'Hare. They would go and take a cab to this hobby shop because it literally took up an entire city block. Now, we're not talking downtown Chicago block. We're talking neighborhood block, which is a little shorter, but still, huge store. And they did have some Avalon Hill games and stuff. And I remember going and picking up Magic Realm because it looked really interesting. Because I had read The Hobbit, I had read The Lord of the Rings. So I was interested in that. I was like, ooh. And then, of course, couldn't make heads or tails out of it. I bet you if I picked that up today, I still wouldn't be able to make heads or tails out of it because a lot of people talk about just how obtuse that rule book is. So I had that, and then also had one of my brother's friends was running Dungeons and Dragons for my brother and his friends. And he came over one day and I rolled up a character. I was a fighter. This is the story where I got the 1897 strength. And he was like, oh my gosh. It was AD&D. And I was like, oh, okay. Never played. Heard a little bit about it from my brother, but never ended up playing. And then I picked up G1 at a hobby shop I used to go to. Not the one that I got the Avalon Hill game. This was a much smaller hobby shop. And was like, oh, this sounds really cool. Once again, having read The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, some other fantasy stuff. And of course, I was at that point in time, I'm reading Stephen King, Peter Straub, and I'm like 11. Yes, Vorpal Bite points out, Steading of the Hill Giant Chief. Yeah, I've shared that story in the past. So I really wasn't a gamer until I started playing games with kids I went to grammar school with. Started playing Dungeons and Dragons, picked up Boot Hill, picked up Gamma World. We've talked about this over and over again. Over the years, especially through probably my late 20s, early 30s, I used to buy tons of gaming stuff, never got to see it at the table, but I would read it and I enjoyed it. And I would crib from some. But I didn't become a gamer until I started playing games with friends from grammar school. And then when I went to high school, it was one of the first things I did when I was looking for a club to join was, did they have a gaming club? And they had two. One was essentially just Dungeons and Dragons, and the other, which is what Elliot and Scott Weigel, who pops in chat from time to time, and other of my high school friends belong to. And we all kind of joined together because we were friends. Well, I would say we were classmates who were kind of gravitating together as a group just within the first few days of our freshman year, because I was in honors classes, and most of the students in each of the honors classes were the same kids. So that's how I really became a gamer. It wasn't because of the games. It's never been because of the games. And I enjoy games. I enjoy the challenge of them. I've talked in the past. I was a bit of I shouldn't say a bit. I was a rules lawyer when I was younger. And I wasn't always like a dick about it, but I would know the rules of a game inside and out. So if something happened, I remember I had one of my friends, Ed, when I was probably 20 or so. We were at his apartment. Well, he lived above his parents in his parents' house. And we were playing Silent Death. And it was him and somebody else. I don't remember who was on his side. And Elliot was on my side. And pulled off a maneuver and blew up one of his ships because it looked like his side was going to win. And then that turned the tide. And he was like, oh, you can't do that. Blah, blah. And I was like, no, look, right here. It's right here. So I was kind of a rules lawyer, but it was never the games. It was always the community, the camaraderie, as far as playing games. And it's still to this day that if we did not have the kind of community that we do as gamers, both locally and in our own small little pockets of family and friends, but also even on a larger scale when you go to a convention. Tabletop gaming conventions, I know it happens. People get into fights, people get into arguments, shit like that, but it doesn't happen very often. Usually everybody is there having a good time. They're all looking to have a good time, and they're looking to like meet people and share their love of the hobby with others and learn about new games and share their love of certain games with other people. That's what brings us together. That's what makes us gamers. That's why we game. If we didn't care about other people, we wouldn't be in this hobby. We just wouldn't. We'd all be like, well, yeah, I'm playing video games, which is fine. I love video games. Don't get me wrong, but there's not a lot of social interaction in video games, even video games that you're connected online. There isn't that same sort of social contact going on as sitting around a table playing a tabletop game. That's why Elliot finds it kind of funny that now we'll play games. If I lose, it's fun. I try my best to win, but if I lose, whatever. It was fun. I had a good time. Oh, it was close. Oh, I almost got you. Hey, when you did that, I was like, oh crap. Of course, when I was younger, when I was kind of a rules lawyer, I wouldn't stew or steam about losing the game, but I'd be like, oh, damn it. Should have won that. Damn crappy dice rolls. Anyway, but today especially, and as things progress through the evening, and I know it's going to be a roller coaster ride for everybody out there who voted in today's election. Just remember, and I know candidates have been saying this quite a bit throughout their campaigns. There's a lot that brings us together. We share a lot of commonality. Yeah, sure. Okay. So there's certain aspects of the world that we disagree on, but they're not as many as others want us to think. And it's that compassion, it's that identifying with other people, wanting to have that community with other people who enjoy the same things that we enjoy, which makes us gamers. And tonight on election night, I think it's important for us to remember, no matter what the outcome is going to be, even though I am going to be probably up until early in the morning, following what's going on with the news, I'm not going to get too bummed out. And I'm not going to get too excited either. Because, the reality is the world will change, but not going to change that much, I wouldn't think. Anyway, so let's see what people are saying in chat. Vorbo Bite says, as a kid, I loved AD&D, but recently I dislike it because there can be so many modifiers turned into a never-fail system. That's one of the things that I don't care for Dungeons and Dragons nowadays, is that, for one, even at starting level, everybody's like super heroic, and it just builds from there. That's why you almost never hear people talk about their high-level adventuring that they do. Oh, yeah, our campaign that we're playing, we're all 17th, 18th level. Oh, really? Yeah. Don't hear too many people playing 5e at that level. Oh, no, we're playing 2nd edition. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, it's just kind of... I don't hate it. I don't hate the people involved in it. I try to stay away from doing videos about it because to me, it's a lot of clickbait, right? Like I was sitting there the other day and I was like, hey, maybe a topic should be, can Dungeons and Dragons be saved? And then I thought, what an asshole-ish topic. Like, ooh, let's talk about how we can save Dungeons and Dragons because it needs saving from the millions of people who are playing it. It's like, no, I don't need views that bad. So yeah, I see where you're coming from. I'm bouncing around. See, the problem I've got is I don't know. It's really difficult for me to have like a set day that I'm going to run something, right? And it's not necessarily just me, because my schedule is pretty set. I mean, it's not like my days are greatly different, right? Except for the days that I do the live streams. It's Elliot can't get out, so on and so forth. My brother, my nephew, my niece. It's, it's like trying to herd cats. But what I would like to do is I would like to take probably Castles and Crusades and adapt an old AD&D campaign to it and try to, keep it moving along, right? I don't want it to just bog down into, minutia and, oh, yeah, it's another battle against goblins. Another random encounter that's just too fucking random, But it is what it is. Hey, if you're tuning in late, this is the only show I'm doing this week. I have some work I got to do on our roof. That is going to be occupying my days probably through the rest of this week. So I'm not going to have any time to prep news. I will try to get some news items out there. I do have some videos already in the can. So here I was looking to get new reviews out each and every day of November. And I do actually have them for yesterday and today. They are written reviews. They're not video reviews. And I also have one for tomorrow that's a video review. Just didn't have an opportunity to post it yesterday because I got into screwing around with the website. But yes, I will not be doing any more shows this week. So keep that in mind. I would have tried to done all this stuff next week and give you a little time, but starting next week, we've got a new sponsor. Yeah, show's got a sponsor again starting next week. So I did not want to kind of screw them over because it's going to be for a Kickstarter. So I don't do that. I'm not that kind of person. So plus I got to get this stuff done before the weather starts to turn. And the weather's really starting to turn in the Chicago area. It was pouring rain out today and started out okay. Then it turned crappy. So just want to let you know. Okay. Sarah D says they're going to go to bed when the stream ends. They'll discover the fate of the nation. Okay, I threw that out there. She said our fate when she wakes up at 4 a.m. Coco B says, don't blame me. They're Canadian. They voted for Kodos. You will see, if you haven't seen the thumbnail for tonight's live show, it's a Cthulhu for president. So that's on tonight's thumbnail. Pete Strakulich is talking about how they got involved with a tabletop role-playing game. It was Shadowrun. Said they started school in a new city in the middle of the year, and they found a group of kids that looked like they had a common respect for one another. They'd sit in a circle during lunch. I guess it was a fairly diverse group. And Pete Strakulich was curious what they were doing, and they asked if they could join. They said, sure. And it was their first tabletop role-playing game, Shadowrun. Vorpal Bite says they want an IC RPG campaign. Index card role-playing game? Good stuff. Good stuff. I would not run it with my group of players, though, because it's a little too abstract, especially for like Elliot. So, and of course, Vorpal Bite says, Cthulhu 2024, why vote for a lesser evil? Of course. All right, everybody, a little shorter show than usual tonight. So I know folks were tuning on in, take a little break from the election news. And I appreciate you spending some time with me. I really do. I will be back a week from tonight. Hopefully, I don't think I'll fall off the roof, but yeah, you never know. See, if I joke about it, then it won't happen. If I didn't say anything about it, well, then I probably have a higher risk of that happening. Cthulhu says they can't decide between Cthulhu and giant flaming meteor. And yes, Vorpal Bite says, don't fall off the roof. I will do my best. All right, everybody. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, bigger thank you. Because not only are you keeping me company, you keep each other company, especially when I'm talking about the news or kind of pontificating about something. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, they don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. I really do appreciate you taking time out to watch any of the over 2,000 videos here on the channel. And of course, when you're now watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for news, reviews, and a whole lot more you're not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube. It'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as my recent review of Chivalry and Sorcery, 5th edition from Britannia Game Design Limited. Yes, if you were curious about Chivalry and Sorcery, I share my thoughts about this, and I will let you know, yes, it's complex. So if you've heard over the years that it's pretty complex, there are complexities to it. I mean, it's not like, oh my gosh, I can never figure this out complex. But it is far more complex than, say, 5e D&D. So there is that. Anyway, if you're curious, check out the review. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening. Enjoy the rest of the week. Have a great weekend. Once again, I will be back next Tuesday. I'm not going anywhere. At least as far as I know, I'm not going anywhere. Knock on wood. So, as I was saying, enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next Tuesday. And of course, as always, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.